here for today's webinar, Becoming an OSCQR Online Course Reviewer. And this is hosted by SUNY Online Teaching and led by Dr. Alex Pickett, Director of Online Teaching at SUNY Online. This webinar will provide an overview and introduction to the SUNY OSCQR rubric and process, including the features and functionality of the PDF self-assessment rubric and the online interactive OSCQR rubric and dashboard. This webinar is also part of the series to become an SUNY Online certified OSCQR reviewer, and participants will earn the Become an OSCQR Online Course Reviewer badge. Resources are available in this folder that I will put in the chat here. And I will also provide individual links as they are referenced by Alex. We certainly welcome you to introduce yourself in the chat. And with that, I will turn it over to Alex Pickett.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Aline and Aaron, for being my co-pilots on this roller coaster ride for becoming an online course reviewer with using OSCQR. We're really happy to have you with us to spend your lunch time with us today to get the introduction to OSCQR from the reviewer perspective. So if you are an instructional designer and are interested in beefing up your knowledge of OSCQR and your use of OSCQR to perform course reviews either formally or informally, or if you're faculty who are interested in being a peer reviewer, you're in the right place. Thank you, Aline, for the introduction. I always like to introduce myself as OSCQR's mom, and I am super proud of OSCQR and all we have accomplished and shared nationally and internationally with OSCQR. There are many institutions everywhere using OSCQR today, and so we are very proud. I am the Director of Online Teaching here at SUNY Online. I was also the first online instructional designer in SUNY back in 1994, and I've trained thousands of SUNY faculty over the years and hundreds of online instructional designers. And like I said, I'm OSCQR's mom. OSCQR was in my dreams probably as far back as 1996-7 for sure. And so it's been really learning from everyone we've had a chance to work with across SUNY, both faculty, instructional designers, and and students that went into the design and creation of OSCQR ultimately. And I'll tell you a little more about that in a minute. I'm also an online instructor at the University at Albany. I'm also peer evaluator for Middle States, and have been on a number of higher education, online higher education boards and conference program like OLC and WCET and UPSIA and so forth. So I know a little bit about online teaching and learning. I always say I'm a learner too, and I love learning, lots of things, but really mostly from the folks who we have the chance to work with, the different contexts that they have and the different ways they're applying OSCQR, for example. And so it's always wonderful to get to know the folks who are instructional designers or faculty or directors of online learning who are using OSCQR. So as Aline mentioned, please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, your role, maybe where you're from, especially if you're not, whether you're from SUNY or not. We'd love to know where exactly you're tuning in from and what your role and interest might be. As Aline mentioned, all of the links that I'm going to show you today can be found at this bit.ly, and she'll pop it in the chat periodically to remind you that you don't have to worry or stress about any of the links that I'm showing. They're all on this doc, and then she's going to paste them in periodically too so that you can see. I will say that there are many more resources um, in the Google Doc. So you can see this is what I'm talking about here. And there's many more resources here that than I'm going to show you. So there will be ample information for you to dive into and explore further after this session. And again, let me just show you the Google folder. This has all of the information from this session, including the slides and that Google Doc with all the links and any additional associated materials from the session. So in general, just sort of an overview of the agenda. We're going to do an overview of OSCQR from the online course reviewer perspective, and we're going to spend some time discussing individual standards and how to apply them, and some tools and materials and resources that you can use as a reviewer to help you to inform and influence the improvement of those specific standards that I handpicked actually for us to talk about today. We're also going to have an overview and a tour of the OSCQR tools and resources to support continuous online course improvements. And as reviewers, most likely you're going to be doing some, or you may be interested in doing some larger scale course review projects. So different from a self-assessment where you're doing your own course, you might be reviewing courses that are in your department as a peer reviewer, or you might be the instructional designer assigned to a department or to a program or to the whole institution. And so you might want to know what tools are available related to OSCQR to help you do something in a bit of a larger scale. And then we're actually going to go and show you how to get the latest version of OSCQR and those tools. And then you'll have the opportunity to, as kind of some bonus and wrap-up activities, to join the OSCQR user group, for example, and the online networking community. And I'll introduce you to a couple of other resources as well. This is the timeline of OSCQR, OSCQR's genesis, I guess, creation and evolution. We're currently in OSCQR 4.0, but we started way back in well, when Open SUNY was launched in 2014, we started talking about OSCQR as an element of the Open SUNY program. And so it was actually launched in September of 2014 and then has gone through a number of iterations over the years. And as I mentioned, we're currently in OSCQR 4.0. OSCQR 4.1 also exists, and that is simply OSCQR 4.0 with the addition of some COIL standards. And the COIL standards are related to the SUNY COIL program, which is the Center for Online International Learning. And so if you're interested in some virtual exchange specific standards, those currently exist in OSCQR 4.0, and you can check them out either in the rubric itself or on the website. We've gotten a number of recognitions that we're super proud of, and continue to develop and evolve the OSCQR rubric and our materials, our associated materials that support the standards. And this coming year, we will be putting together a group to help us with the next version of Oscar. So it would be Oscar 5.0, in which we will be reviewing the accessibility standards and improving those. We will be incorporating a diversity, equity, and inclusion project that we have been working on for the past couple of years. So associating Oscar standards with inclusive online teaching practices. And I think also augmenting or supplementing mobile learning, some mobile learning standards into that mix as well. So stay tuned. We're hoping that we will to initiate that work this coming academic year. All right, let's go on to how many people in the room either haven't seen this video or are not familiar with Oscar at all? If you could either raise your hand or say stuff in the chat. Not seeing anything come up in the chat. Did anyone raise their hands? So it seems like most people are familiar with it. So I'm not going to show this video, which is a very cool video. Oh, I'm not going to show it though. But I want to point you to it because when you are explaining as an instructional designer or even a director of online learning or a faculty person who's trying to put together a group of people to do course reviews, you want to be able to explain to the faculty that you're working with or the folks above you or in your own unit what Oscar is and how it works and what it isn't, and to be able to do that in a clear, easy, digestible kind of way. And this video is 5 minutes and really explains the scope and the breadth of what Oscar is and does. So it's a really good tool to have in your back pocket when you are at a department meeting or at some other type of event or meeting where you want to explain what Oscar's all about. I would also point you to the Oscar website and show, and there are a number of documents right here under the About link that help explain Oscar as well, including just a plain About page with a link to that video. And then there's information about the process, the Oscar process, and then some things about Oscar that are unique. And let me go back to that process visual. Oscar is more than a rubric of 50 standards. It's also a process, recommended sort of continuous improvement process that is iterative, right? It doesn't end. You just go through the process again and again. And it's also, what was I going to say? It's a continuous improvement process, and oh, I lost my train of thought. So it's a course review and refresh process. Oh, and it's more than just the process and the rubrics. It's also a rubric. It's also the materials. So the website, the companion website, there's a page for every standard, and I'll show you that in a second. And so it's important to help folks explain it, that it's not just the rubric of standards. It's the tools, it's the process itself, and it's the materials that are associated with each of the standards. Some really unique things about Oscar are that it is not intended as a course or faculty evaluation tool. It really is intended to promote and scaffold a conversation around evidence-based standards and continuous improvements in online course design. And so it's non-evaluative. You cannot fail Oscar. It's again intended to help reviewers, so instructional designers or faculty or peer reviewers, to look at a course and assess against evidence-based standards how that course is representing those standards and giving suggestions on how they might be improved. It's also extensible. It can accommodate additions, so you can edit the standards. And you can eliminate standards, you can add standards. It's intended to be flexible enough to accommodate those things. Your nursing program might have different standards than your English department program. So we wanted to make it as flexible as possible and to accommodate any kind of course review model, from formal to informal, from something that's led by an online instructional designer to something that's led by a group of peer or multidisciplinary reviewers. So another thing that's cool and unique about it is that it produces an action plan to assist in prioritization of what things to fix and to help determine when to fix those things. So it's not assuming that you have to fix everything that you identify as needing improvement in a course. It's helping you to understand what those things are and then giving you some tools to think about what you can fix first or next. And it does that by instead of, it's not a scorecard. You're not rating how well it meets the standards. You're actually trying to determine in a subjective way, whoever's filling out the rubric, how long it's going to take you to fix it. And that is one way that you can prioritize what can get fixed. It depended on the amount of time you have to fix it. If you only have 1 week to work on a course, you're going to work on the things that are probably the most important things to work on or essential to work on, and the things that might take less investment of time or development of skills. So OSCQR is intended to help you with that type of prioritization. Another thing that's unique about it is that it specifically targets accessibility and RSI to assist and inform compliance with those federal regulations. It's openly licensed, and it's also free. So the open license allows you to adapt it, reuse it, do whatever you want with it, and there's no fee or charge for the use of it. And again, the flexibility of it is intentional and designed to accommodate any type of course review and refresh model or approach. So those are some of the things to keep in mind when you're thinking about adopting and adapting OSCQR as a course reviewer. And to be able to articulate and explain to anyone that you are talking to about why you are choosing OSCQR or why you are adapting it in some particular way, and what the various tools and processes and materials are around the rubric itself. The website here is the home, I guess, really, of all of the standards that are in OSCQR. And you can see as I mouse over, there's 50 standards, and they are categorized into 6 sort of overarching categories of information. And they kind of follow the structure of an online course and the review of an online course, starting with the course overview and information and all of the standards that are associated with that. You'll see it's 1 through 10. And then going on to the tools and the technology, the design and layout, the content and activities, the interaction, and then finally assessment and feedback. So all of the standards are listed in the website, and they all contain a full explanation of the standard, a list of examples, ideas, and suggestions, and then also any citations or related research that supports that particular standard. And then if there's any effective practices that we have found in our in the Topper repository or the OLC effective practices repository, we point to those. And then there's always the opportunity to submit your own examples and your own evidence and best practices so that we can continuously improve what we are showcasing for each of the standards. And here I'm showing you standard 1, which happens to be associated with RSI. So that's why you see the little RSI graphic up here in the right-hand corner. Here's the overview and the description of it. It has a little mini video that has a number of folks from our own community talking about the importance and the implementation of this particular standard. There's more information on RSI because this one happens to be associated with RSI. And then there's a number of ideas to refresh this particular standard in your course, and some examples and some ideas for doing video introductions, which goes into this particular standard, some tips on doing videos, the info from Topper, as I mentioned, which is the Teaching Online Pedagogical Repository from UCF, and then some additional resources to explore. And then you can comment or you can share your own examples. And this is how every page is set up for every standard. And then, I mentioned that OSCQR is evidence-based. And so if you're interested in research that is either supportive of individual standards, or that is research that has been conducted with OSCQR being one of the rubrics that was included in the study, you can come to this page and take a look at some of those research studies, or those supportive studies for individual standards. And then what else did I want to show you here? Community. So it's an openly licensed tool. And so community members are always creating things. And then if they share them with me, I'll post them on this community page so that you can get the benefit of the tools and materials and stuff that the community is creating. And so you can come here and take a look, and if you design something and you share it with me, I'll put it on this page. And then certification. Some of you may have signed up for certification. This webinar is the first step in certification. And if you're interested in certification, and I hope every SUNY ID is interested in getting certified. If you've been doing course reviews for years, you should have the badge. And so just let me know, and you have to give me a little evidence so that I can attach that to your badge. But I'll work with you to get you certified. And the same with anyone who's not from SUNY. If you're interested in the certification, we have a mechanism to extend that certification to folks outside of SUNY. And again, let me know if you're interested. Okay, so I think that is my sort of introductory. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the tour. We just did the tour. And I think now what we're going to do is go over and get OSCQR. So on the OSCQR website, there is a drop down that says actually get OSCQR. And this is where you would come anytime you want to make sure you have the latest version of OSCQR, whether you're talking about the rubric itself or the interactive versions of the rubric or dashboard. And I'm going to show those to you in a second, but this is where you would come. Here's the OSCQR self-assessment PDF. This is the rubric in PDF format, and you might be familiar with it. This is what it looks like. It's a fillable PDF. And so if you're doing one course, reviewing one course or a couple of courses, you might use the rubric. If you're doing your own course, you might use the rubric, the PDF version of the rubric for this. And, you just fill it out based on, if you look at your course and see, does it include a welcome and getting started content? And if it's sufficiently present, you just click it's sufficiently present. If you think it might need a minor improvement, you would click minor revision. Moderate revision, you would click moderate revision. If it's more of a major revision, which we estimate something that might take 2 or more hours, you would click that one. And if it's not applicable for whatever reason, you would click that. And then in the action plan, you would just write out some notes. Like, for example, maybe your course has a video introduction in your course welcome materials, but it's just you as the instructor, or it's just the instructor. You observe, if you're reviewing someone else's course, you see that it's just introducing the instructor. And that could be improved by extending that video to include a quick tour of the very important areas of the course, like where the syllabus is and where the contact information is, and where the books are and how they're going to be evaluated, and where the grade book is and where the first assignment is, those kinds of things. Just a quick tour of those important course areas. That can be incorporated into the welcome overview and improve, the welcome video, and improve the welcome video for those students that are first gen, for those students who have never taken an online course before, or because maybe, at your institution, maybe not all of the courses are set up or designed sort of in similar ways. And so you want to make sure that the students don't have to hunt around too much to find what they need to find. So you document in your action plan what you would like to see improved in that particular standard. So, this might be redo the welcome video to include a brief course tour, and so forth. And so you'd go through all of them. And then at the end, you would write more narrative feedback on what's working well in the course and what needs to be improved, and just so that you keep track of and in mind all of the different things that you found and that you think could use some improvement and some specificity around that, so that when you look at that again, or when the instructor looks at it, or the group, whoever it is that's reviewing and improving the course, that they can understand what your recommendations and thoughts were when you did the review. So let me just show you a couple of the interactive tools. If you want to get the interactive version of the rubric, you would go to the Get Oscar page and then generate your interactive version of the rubric. And basically you fill out this form, which just is asking for your Gmail address and the name of your course, and that will generate a rubric for you behind the scenes, and you'll get a couple of emails with links explaining to you how to go get your copy of the rubric. And this is what it looks like. It's very similar to the PDF, but it contains really thousands of lines of code behind it to make it an interactive online tool. And the benefits of using the interactive one is that it has more features to it, and so you have to sort of weigh whether or not it's in your benefit to do it. So you can see down here there's a number of tabs. This is really a spreadsheet. And we have a tab for instructional designer, faculty, and reviewer. And so if you're having a team of people who are, the ID, the instructor of record, and an additional reviewer, you would assign them each a tab, and they would go in and fill out the rubric from their perspective. And you can see here that if you mouse over these little carrots, there's additional information about each standard. And then over here, there's a link. Over to the right here, there's a link that says Need Ideas. And each of these links specifically to the OSCQR standard page on the website. And then anything that you type here, it says could use a video and a course tour and so forth, needs some work, where's the syllabus, no syllabus, that kind of stuff. anything that you type in the action plan is going to appear in the action plan dynamically. So it'll get generated and aggregated. So everyone who is filling out one of those tabs in the spreadsheet, that feedback is going to appear here in the action plan aggregated, and it's going to estimate the time to fix, and it's going to tell you whether it thinks it's important or essential. These things are subjective in some ways, but Oscar has a point of view, which is the SUNY online teaching point of view. We decided what we think is essential and important. If you have different opinions, you can change that and reorganize this to whatever priorities you would like. And it might be different priorities for different disciplines or programs, or it might be just your institution or your unit has different priorities. And so that's one of the cool features, that it generates this action plan that you can print out, and it will help you with the prioritization of whether it's important or essential and how much time has been estimated that it will take to fix it. All right, so that's the rubric. The dashboard, for those of you who want to do something on a little bit of a larger scale, the dashboard will help reviewers and those managing a number of reviews to have a dashboard that can give you some insights and control over the reviews that are being conducted. And so to generate your dashboard, again, you would come back to the Get Oscar page and then click that link to generate your Oscar Online Interactive Dashboard. This is the form you would fill out. And again, it's pretty simple: name of the course and your email, or your institution name, I guess is what it wants. And then it then generates this dashboard for you that you have to configure. And so there you'll get an email that has the information in order to configure your dashboard for yourself. And you'll see there's this menu of items here on Oscar. In order to get that menu, you need to configure the dashboard. If you want to do that, I would be happy to do a consultation with you to help you get set up. It's not, it's not difficult to do, but sometimes it helps to have somebody kind of guide you through the process. So if you want to be guided, you can contact me and I'll do a consultation with you to help you set up your dashboard. What the dashboard allows you to do is to create rubrics for specific courses, and then to assign them to somebody, like the ID, for example. And then it tracks. So this line here, Introduction to Watercolors, has an ID, a faculty person, and a reviewer that are responsible for filling it out. And I'll just click on it so you can see. This rubric was created with this dashboard. So as the manager of a review process, you can create any number of rubrics for any number of courses. And then you have an easy place to click on to see the actual rubric. And so I can come in here and look and see that the instructional designer has indeed completed the review and thought everything was sufficiently present. The instructor also, and so did the reviewer. And so when I go back to my dashboard, it's telling me that the ID, the faculty, and the reviewer are done. There's nothing that needs to be refreshed. The ID was Bill, and this course is ready to be made live. And so then, similarly, you can see that Intro to Online Teaching, my course, is only 20% done by the ID, and the faculty and the reviewer haven't started their reviews yet. The review has to start by next week. And I, as the manager of this process, have put these notes in there. But I generated all of these rubrics and now can track them from the dashboard. So this is not intended for faculty. This is intended for instructional designers, for course reviewers, for directors of online learning, managers of course review processes, project managers, folks who are trying to track and facilitate larger scale online course quality activities and initiatives. So I am going to leave this with you here and go on to the next set of standards. I saw that there was a question, Aline. Um, did they type it in the chat, or do they want to speak?
No, Eric has his hand raised. Eric, did you want to come off mute?
Hi. Oh, sorry. I tried to turn my camera on and it didn't let me. I'm really curious if I understood correctly, those 100% that were in that column were how filled out the document is, not how well this, not that that one column was successfully met, filled in all the way.
Correct. So Oscar's not evaluative, right?
Right.
We're not assessing how well any standards are met. We are assessing how much time, first of all, is there something that could be improved? And then how much time would it take for that thing to get improved?
Perfect.
So this is not Quality Matters, and it's not the OLC rubric, right? This is non-evaluative, and I just wrote a blog post on precisely this. And maybe Aline or Aaron can go find that link and pop it in the chat, because this is a really important, unique distinction about Oscar. When you're doing the course review, you're not saying how well this course meets that standard. You're looking to see whether the standard can be improved in any way, with the understanding that even really great courses can always be improved in some way. Technology changes, your discipline changes, content changes, your own skills change. So that first video that the instructor did to introduce themselves, maybe that's all they could do the first time they designed the course. But then after having taught it maybe once or twice or a few times, you might want to suggest to them that they add the course tour to their video. So, and there's always something that can be tweaked or improved. So the 100% means that the ID finished their reviews and their suggestions, not that it meets 100% of whatever the standard is. That is never the case. We're not measuring that with Oscar at all. I hope that's clear. Thank you
Yep.
for asking the question, Eric, because I think it was a really important distinction between Oscar and other rubrics. Of course, Oscar is openly licensed. You can turn it into a scorecard if you want to. But that it was intentionally designed not to be a scorecard. And I had never wanted in SUNY to be in a position of evaluating faculty or their courses, or telling faculty that they failed, or putting instructional designers in a position that was somehow adversarial, or create any tension between them. I see us on the same side of the table with faculty, looking at the course and thinking, what in this course could be improved today, which might be different than it was yesterday, and it might be different than it is tomorrow. But today, what could we improve in this course? And then thinking of this as continuous improvement, and then thinking of it as a conversation starter, right? Let's look at this particular standard. Let's see how the course addresses this standard. And is there anything that we can do perhaps to improve this incrementally for the next time? And maybe there is, and maybe there's not. But the question is open always. Okay, let me go on to specific standards. So we're going to look at standard number 3. And first, so I picked a couple of these standards to chat about and to discuss and to show you some resources and information that might help you as a reviewer to think about this particular standard. So this one has to do with the course. This is in the beginning of a course, so it's under the course overview and information area or category of standards. And this one specifically addresses that the course includes a course information area and syllabus that make course expectations clear and findable. And again, there's a description, the mini learning video, some references, how this is associated with RSI, and then some suggestions for how you might improve this particular standard, and some examples, and some additional videos and some additional information. So you can, if you're trying to improve, if you think that this particular standard needs improvement, you've taken a look at it, and there's something that you feel like needs to be improved, you can go through this document and see what ideas it's suggesting, to see if anything resonates with you as a suggestion that you could make for the instructor to improve that particular standard. So in this particular standard, one of the resources that I point folks to, because it's related to the syllabus, is a syllabus template that we created that can be used as a model. So you can look at your own syllabus and compared against this one, and see, are you hitting all of the different sort of elements. And the unique thing about this syllabus is that every element that's articulated in the syllabus is associated with a particular OSCQR standard. And you would remove, so you can use it as sort of like a model to look at your own syllabus, but you can also make a copy of this and use this as your, fill it out as your own syllabus if you wanted to. And if you were going to do that, you would remove, the references to OSCQR, and then just put your own information in there. But because this is about OSCQR, this workshop, and you are all potential reviewers, this is one thing that you could recommend when you look at the instructor's syllabus and see that perhaps some things might be missing from their syllabus. You could recommend that either they put it into their syllabus if that's possible, or that they add it to course information documentation within the documents, the initial documents of the course. I know different institutions, even in SUNY, we're 64 institutions, so everyone has their own way of doing things, their own policies, their own procedures. So you should definitely think, work with your department and your the powers that be at your campus regarding syllabus. But you have this as a model and as a template if that makes if that will help you. There are some unique things in this syllabus. You saw up here, there's a basic needs section, there's a names and pronouns section, there's a regular and substantive interactions section, which I'll mention again when we get to that standard. And then there is a statement on AI in here somewhere. Here it is. So, take a look at every syllabus in the course that you review and see if they have a statement on AI. Make sure if your department or your institution has a policy that's referenced in the syllabus, and if not, that somewhere in the course the instructor is telling the students what their expectations are regarding the use of AI. And so it might be it's not allowed, it might be it's encouraged under certain conditions, or it might be that it's required under certain conditions. And you're helping students understand how to cite AI as well. So those are just some unique things about this sort of OSCQR infused syllabus template that you can use as you're reviewing courses, and the course information and syllabus information in the front matter of the course. That front matter, the course information, the types of information are really similar to what you would see in a syllabus. And as I said, all syllabuses can be different. So some of them may just be a duplicate of what the face-to-face syllabus is, in which case it's not really speaking to the online student, and there may be unique things about the course that are not fully articulated or represented in the syllabus itself, because it's simply the filed syllabus for that particular course. So if that's the case, then you want to make sure that you have course information documents within the body of the course that speak directly to the online student. So a welcome and contact information, and that these things are clearly labeled, in that front matter of the course, and that they are easy to find. So the link to the syllabus to download it or to view it is easily findable. The course information that spells out all of the things, how they'll be evaluated, the materials for the course, the schedule, all of those things are articulated and easy to find in that front matter of a course. And if you come to this page and click on any of these things, it's just examples of what that might look like. And also the OSCQR standard that it's or standards that it's associated with, to further hammer that point. The issue of an impact of findability is really, really important, especially at the start of an online course. And this study I'm pointing you to, if you're interested to dive a little more deeply into some of the research that is behind this particular standard on findability. This is a really, really important study that found they did eye tracking. An eye tracking study where they had students, entering the course for the first time, and then they tracked the amount of time it took them to find things, and they asked them questions about that process, and they did the eye tracking and so forth, and they found a number of really interesting and important things. So students that rated courses where things were easily findable said that they had a better overall experience in the course. And this paper documented the experience in 5 different dimensions, which if you're interested in exploring this further, you can take a look at the paper. But the really super important and thing that blew my mind was that students reported that they had lower levels of self-efficacy. So they believed that they could succeed less, and they had less motivation for the course when the findability of some of the things that they were looking for, like contact information, syllabus, those kinds of things that we showed in the course information area, when the findability of those things was low. So if they couldn't find out how to contact the instructor, or what the process or mechanism was to contact the instructor with a question, if they had to hunt around, and we're talking seconds that were measured, right? And eye tracking, they believed that that their ability to succeed in the course was lower, and they also had lower motivation to interact with the course. The other thing that they found was that they perceived that the qualifications or the capability of the instructor to teach the course was lower if they had trouble finding what they were looking for. So that was the piece that blew my mind. So it's super important to make sure that the things that are important and relevant to online students be, in terms of course information, that they be clear in terms of expectations, and findable in terms of how students actually get to them. So burying your syllabus under 3 clicks is not the best practice, right? Making sure that things are clear and findable. All right, let's go on to the next standard, standard 9. And this one is about course objectives being clearly defined and measurable and aligned with learning activities and assessments. So this is the magic formula for an online course, and it can help you to design and to determine what needs to be in the course and what doesn't. So you have a set of course level objectives or outcomes that are clearly defined and measurable. There is content that is associated with those objectives. There are interactions and activities that are based on the content that are addressing those objectives. And then there are assessments based on those activities and feedback planned on those activities that are associated with the content that then are associated with those objectives. That's the magic formula. And in this particular standard, you're looking to see, are the objectives well articulated, and is there content for each of them, and are there activities for each of them, and are there assessments planned for each of them? And then there's different nuances for each of those areas. So for example, often a question that that an instructional designer will get asked by an instructor is how much work should go in, how much content, how much can I expect a student to do in an online course? And without some guidance, the impulse will be for the instructor to put everything that they know into the course. And some of it may be associated with the objective, some of it may not, some of it may, be activities that are not directly related to the objectives. Some of the assessments may be, outside of the context of the either assessment or the content. So when you're reviewing a course, you want to make sure there's alignment with all of those things. And when you're answering the question of how much, I came up with this this documentation to help guide. So in an undergraduate course, you can expect 9 hours a week per work for 15 weeks, which comes up to 135 total hours. And so that breaks down to 9 hours a week for a 15-week 3-credit course. And so when you're looking at a course to review it, you want to try and understand, is there everything in the kitchen sink in there? And is this course doable with a student doing 9 hours per week on this particular course? And if it's too much, your feedback is going to be, let's look at, this alignment between objectives and content, activities, and feedback. And let's look at the amount of work that you are requiring, and let's see if we can tweak that in some way to make this course doable, more reasonable in terms of the quantity of work that's required. So to assist you with some of that, here's a workload estimator. Then this is from Wake Forest University, and I've filled it out. It's a 15-week course. They're reading 30 pages per week. It's 450 pages, words per page. There's some new concepts. The purpose is to engage. There's written assignments that are 30 pages per semester. And there's the density. It's a research project. There's extensive drafting and so forth. You can see I filled all of this in. Now, with the way that I have filled this in order to do this, it's 14.83, almost 15 hours per week. Based on my, information over here, it's nearly double what is recommended for a 15-week 3-credit course. So you would need to start tweaking some of this. Maybe in terms of other assignments, you reduce this to 1. And you can see when I do that, did it work? Did it go down? It's supposed to go down. Let's see if it does it. Yeah, it's going down. Every time I do this, it goes down a little bit. So you can come in here and start tweaking this to help you. It's not perfect, and it's not, it's just a way to give you and the faculty person you're working with some idea of how much work it's actually going to take for the student to accomplish what you've laid out for them to accomplish. Now, again, this all starts with the objectives. And so as a reviewer, you want to take a very close look at the objectives that the course has, the course level objectives. And then, if it says the student will understand, the student will know, the student will understand, the student will know, you'll know that those objectives need some work. And I like this reference because it shows like a poorly written one and one that is better written. It shows the juxtaposition between the two. So you want the objectives to be measurable, and you want them to be specific, and knowing and understanding, that's hard to measure, that's hard to observe, that's hard to, it's just too vague. So you want to have them do something that then can generate feedback or something that, can help them to know how well they applied whatever it was, and help you as the reviewer or the instructor to know how well they did actually do that. So taking a look at the objectives is super important. I suggest taking a look at Bloom's this model of learning objectives to help to explain to faculty who might be struggling a little bit with understanding, why and how they might need to tweak their objectives. And this helps to frame things from the perspective of the knowledge dimension, which goes from concrete knowledge to abstract knowledge. And there's sort of phases of that. So you have things at the concrete level that are factual. And of course, you might have to memorize some stuff, right? But you want to also hit things that move the student forward to conceptual, procedural, or metacognitive down that abstract, towards more abstract knowledge. And then this particular model, Bloom's, also talks about the cognitive process dimension. So from lower order thinking skills to higher order thinking skills. And as instructional designers, most of you are probably familiar with Bloom's, but this document really helps in terms of articulating that when you're either making a recommendation to an instructor or a suggestion perhaps to move from the remembering up to analyze, evaluate, or create, or beyond the lower order ones to higher order ones. And it helps you to see some examples of that as well. So whether you're writing up a recommendation or whether you're sitting with the instructor and helping to explain why you recommend that they do this, I think this resource can help you. And then, this particular resource will give you some nice verbs, action verbs, with some sample statements and some sample activities or outcomes that you could use as you are tweaking or recrafting the objectives themselves, and all along the Bloom's, the taxonomy here along this first column, and then the action verbs that are associated and so forth. And then I did also want to show you that there's a generator, and there's a number of these generators that are out there that can actually help you to create let's do a course level. Let's do Bloom's. Let's do Bloom's evaluate. Let's do 4. And then if I had additional details, I would put those in here. Since I'm doing biology, I'm just going to leave that blank, and I'm doing this live, so hopefully it works. So there's some AI behind this. This is from our friends at Arizona State University, this generator. And so it comes up. I set all of this criteria. I set Bloom's level evaluate. And so it's using verbs like critique, assess, evaluate, judge, and then giving some examples. And of course, if you had some specifics about what the objectives should be, you would put that in this objectives details. I didn't do anything, so it just randomly came up with this. But this is a nice tool to quickly brainstorm some ideas for different levels of objectives associated with the different Bloom's levels. All right, I'm going to move on to keep pushing us forward through the standards. The next one I want to talk about is 16. And 16 is talking about having a logical, consistent, uncluttered layout that's easy to navigate. And so in 16, we're getting into the design and layout section of OSCQR standards, and many of these are associated with accessibility. So I'm going to give you a couple of suggested resources here to take a look at. And so when you're designing a course, you have to chunk it in some way. And whether you call it chunks or modules or weeks or whatever you call it, you want to have a logical structure. You want to have that structure be consistent from module to module where that makes sense, right? Sometimes that consistency needs to break because in that particular module, you're doing something different, or maybe you're doing something thematic or metaphorical. So there's always, sort of exceptions, but consistency and chunks and being clear about the expectations and so forth are important. Another magic number for you to remember is in terms of numbers of chunks within a course, because the chunks of the course are put into a learning management system, largely text-based, and so you have to have there's a number of pieces of content that contain other pieces of content within the course. The magic number for those sort of larger chunks of the course is 7 plus or minus 2. And we did research that showed on the part of the learner that the higher the number of modules, the lower the satisfaction and lower percentage of learning, higher than 9 and lower than 5. And then the same was true for instructors. The higher the number of modules, above 9, the lower their perception of the learner's learning was, and the lower their satisfaction, their own satisfaction was, and same with the lower numbers. So the magic number is 7 plus or minus 2. And so if you have a book that has 35 chapters, that doesn't mean you can't organize it by those chapters. It just means maybe glom a couple of those chapters together into a single module with an overarching topical title. And also depending on how the course is implemented, you might want to either refer to the chunks as topics, or you might want to refer to them as weeks. Especially in a hybrid course, you're going to want to refer to weeks. And so, you have to take all of this information with a grain of salt. And when you're doing a review, take a look at how is the course structured. Does it have 35 modules? Does it just say module 1, module 2, module 3, module 4, or does it give a really good title that creates an advanced organizer for the students to understand? In this biology course, these are the topical areas, the 7 topical areas that we're going to be discussing in this course. And one is cell mitosis, and one is, whatever else goes. I shouldn't have picked biology, but, like having nice, good contextual titles to describe what's inside that module helps act as an advanced organizer for the student. And then, you want to have an overview for each module with module level objectives. You want to present some content. You want to design some activities that are interactive and active. And you want to design some assessments and feedback that all, again, map to the course level objectives, and there's alignment. You can see direct alignment between all of the objectives and the content and the activities and the feedback, even at the modular level. All right, let's go on to the next resource. So we in SUNY designed a set of templates that are Oscar infused, Oscar informed. And I'm going to show you one of them. We use D2L here in SUNY, but I've exported these templates into the, what is that called? Common cartridge format. So I know folks have or are beginning, I think it's Eric actually, that is beginning to put it into Canvas. And we have one that has been put into Moodles and of course Blackboard. So if you don't use D2L, you can still use these templates. But essentially, the modular structure, what I'm showing you here is a template that is Oscar infused and that is demonstrating the modular structure. And so we have our welcome start here information, we have our course information, and there's, if you click on any of these things, you can actually get to some of the suggested content there. Office hours, class community, a place to ask a question, a place to get help, and some preview activities. So before the course goes live, there's activities, and then starts the module. And the anatomy of this module is a course overview, some content, a discussion, an assignment, a quiz, and a place to ask a question. So, and that is repeated. That structure is repeated in the next module. So just wanted to share that with you. These are free, openly licensed templates that an instructional designer can take and adapt to your institution and implement in your D2L instance, or take a copy of it from the common cartridge and work on it to adapt it. And I would love to hear from you if you do that, to see what that ends up looking like. For that particular template that I just showed you, this is the alignment with OSCQR. So every element that is in that template is aligned with OSCQR, and this is some detailed information that we documented related to each of the elements that are in that particular template. All right, let's go on to 24, which has to do with the linear format instead of a table. And this is really an accessibility standard, and trying to help folks look at tables that are, if you're reviewing a course, take a look at the table to make sure that it is designed for screen readers. And if not, that would be your feedback, right? That the tables need to be remediated or need to be designed differently to eliminate the need for the use of tables. Obviously, you need to use tables occasionally. So if you are going to use them, they just need to be accessible to screen readers. So I wanted to show you an example of that. So if you need to explain to an instructor and show them what it would look like. So here's a table. And then I'm just going to play the screen.
Table with 8 columns and 5 rows. Fall term, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, post-bac, non-dash, degree, total 2007, 42, 40, 32, 18, 34, 18, 46,
so it's
39,
just reading
344,
straight across. It's just reading the table straight across. This table hasn't been optimized for accessibility. So by optimizing it, it would then read down and be a little bit more understandable for the person using the screen reader. And so here is there's some information on this page from our friends at Oregon State. Where is that page? Back. Yeah, this one. So, how to create things that are more accessible in terms of tables from our friends there at Oregon State. So very important, accessibility. As we know, we have a new, not new, but a regulation that has a deadline of April 2026, the Title II ADA regulation. And we have a page that we've set up and we're doing some webinars around this, both from the online teaching unit as well as from the SUNY Online program group. And so, come back for any of those webinars and some general tips. And then I do want to point you to a wonderful checklist that Aline has created that can help you target some specific areas that need to be looked at in terms of the course. So if you're doing your review that is focused on accessibility, this is a great place to come to see, all of the different things and tips that might help you give some good constructive feedback to your instructor regarding accessibility, and to flag for you things to go and check, alt tags and PDFs and tables, to name a few. All right, let's go on to 29, which is the standard that talks about active learning, really. Is this active learning? Well, creating engaging resources to present content, support learning and collaboration, as well as to facilitate regular and substantive interaction with the instructor. So yeah, thinking about the activities, are they passive? When you're reviewing the course, look at them and see, would there be a way to make this activity more engaging, more active, less passive? That's what I always look at when I'm looking at the activities that have been designed. does the content relate to the activity? And is there an objective that maps to that activity? And is the activity active enough? And so there's a lot of wonderful resources out there to help you think through um, you know, what types of activities can be designed. And often, an instructor who's new to online learning, they're going to maybe try to replicate what they do in their physical classroom online. And what they really need to do is reconceptualize so that they take advantage of the opportunities and minimize the limitations of the online environment. And sometimes that means really reconceptualizing entirely what you ask the students to do to apply what they're learning or to demonstrate what they have learned. And so I'm going to point you to this wonderful resource from our friends at the University of Illinois Springfield. It has a variety of online instructional activities, some of which you see might be analogous to stuff that you do in a classroom, like role playing or interviews or jigsaw or think, pair, share. Those kinds of things are familiar to faculty in face-to-face environments. What this is doing is it's adapted those activities to be more active and implementable in an online environment. So for example, debate is the one that I chose. You can do a debate online, absolutely. Asynchronously, you can absolutely do it online and asynchronously. And this resource here will tell you, give you ideas of how you might do that. And so if you see an activity in a course that you're reviewing that is kind of passive, and that a debate might help to achieve the objective in a more effective manner, you could suggest, turn this activity into a debate, or here are some ways to make this debate more interactive rather than passive. So I invite you to mine that resource for ideas. And then I also went over to Topper, our University of Central Florida repository of pedagogical best practices. And here's another a review, not review, but like an articulation of how you could do a debate in an online classroom, full with examples and all the information I think you would need to start thinking through how you might adapt this for the course that you're working on. Okay. So let's go on to standard 30. And standard 30 is, let's see what it is. The course provides activities for learners to develop higher order thinking and problem solving skills. So this is associated with, it starts with the learning objectives, but then this is about designing the activities themselves, right? So you want to help learners move from the lower order thinking skills to the higher order thinking skills through the activities that they are asked to do in the course of the course. So you might start out with some of the more factual, concrete level activities or ways that they demonstrate their thinking and their learning or their remembering or whatever it is. And then, in the next module or in the next activity, you want to move them up to begin to do some application of that. So what I wanted to show you with this one is same handout as before, but down here in this grid here, to take a look at how you might be able to, for example, let's look at differentiate. This is hitting analyze on the cognitive dimension and conceptual on the knowledge dimension. And this is talking about differentiating high and low culture. So for that type of course, if you go to evaluate, it's also on the same conceptual and now on the evaluate level, you are differentiating the relevance of results, right? So this can help you sort of try, use the different dimensions here and the different levels. So you could be at the remember level and at the metacognitive level on the knowledge dimension by identifying strategies for retaining information. And you can be, so you just use the grid to try and understand where it is that you're hitting, depending on where you are on the cognitive dimension and where you are on the knowledge dimension. So when you're reviewing a course and trying to make some recommendations or trying to help faculty to understand how they might reimagine their activities based on what they've articulated in the objectives, this is a nice, handy resource to point to. AI is also a tool that I mentioned in the syllabus document, where you have that syllabus statement that talks about AI. And I thought I would add a couple of AI resources associated with Bloom's to the list of resources that you can take a look at to see if there's something there that you could recommend to faculty. And again, there's a nice tie-in with Bloom's taxonomy and AI related to the design of activities, which is the standard we're currently in. So have a look at that when you have a moment, and see if that's something that you want to make recommendations on to your instructors or talk about with the faculty whose courses you are reviewing. Talking about metacognition, I just wanted to share an example of something that I do in my own online course. It's a master's level course. It's Introduction to Online Teaching, and I have them think about how they're learning, how they know they're learning, how they're applying what they're learning, those kinds of things, those metacognitive questions around their perceptions of their own learning. And so I talk about what I do, and I use a blog for this. I have students blog, their own blogs, public blogs. I talk about why I do this, and then I talk about how I do it, what tools I use. And then I give all of the prompts that I use in my course. And I do one of these in each of the modules of my course. And of course, I'm not suggesting that you do this exactly the way that I do it. It's just an example of how one might address metacognition as a learning activity in a course. And the way I make this active, of course, this is a self-reflective metacognition, is, you're reflecting internally, but externally they have to write publicly, and they have to read each other's blogs, and they have to comment and on each other's blogs, leave little messages for each other on their blogs. So just an idea, something for you to think about if someone that you're reviewing might be interested. Maybe they have a journaling activity, maybe it's private, maybe it's only submitted to the instructor, and if there's no reason for it to be private, if it could be public, you can make it more interactive by sharing it publicly within the course or making them do it outside of the context of the course. My learning objective is I'm trying to help pre-service educators understand how to use the web for professional and academic purposes. So I want them to write publicly. So it's one of my stated learning objectives. That's why I do it. But maybe that's not for another course. So it could be internal to the course, but maybe have them peer evaluate each other's journaling activities. And maybe you add the element of metacognition in there to hit those higher order thinking skills and support learner, self-regulated learning strategies, which I'll talk about in a second too. So Standard 38 is specifically about regular and substantive interaction, and I'm not going to go in too much detail about this one, except to tell you that I do a whole session as one of the OSCQR webinars for the series of OSCQR webinars. It's dedicated to regular and substantive interaction. It's a regulation, and there are implications at the campus level, instructional design level, and faculty level. You need to know what that regulation is and how your institution and your faculty development and instructional design and implementation, if you're asked how you comply, you need to be able to articulate that, and to do that in a systematic and consistent way protects everybody. I go into a lot of detail about this particular regulation. You will get a badge So I invite you to come to that workshop, and Aaron or Aline can post the link to the rest of the webinars in this series so that you can sign up and come back for that one. One short thing I'll say about it is that RSI has absolutely nothing to do with course quality. It's only about helping the Department of Education differentiate between self-paced online instruction and what we know as online instruction, and the difference between those, between correspondence type courses and on what we know as online education, for the purposes of financial aid. So nothing to do with quality. And I'll go into a lot more detail in the webinar for that. All right. This was 38. The next one is 42. And this one is about student to student interaction. And so some of the things that I want to highlight and for you to look at as a reviewer when you're looking at a course, if the course has small group work, or maybe it doesn't, and maybe this is a recommendation that you might make to make the course more engaging, more interactive, more active, you might suggest some small group work, some collaborative work, and opportunities for students to interact with each other. So we know in social constructivism that it's essential to learning, not just from the instructor to the student or from the student to the instructor, also between the learners. There's ways to do small group work that work better than others. And so there's a lot of tips on size, on preparation, on how the groups are formed, on the instructions, on how it's actually designed in the learning management system, of where the information is for each group. Is it private? Can everybody see everything? Is the objective clear? And do the students have the skills? So maybe you start out with a lower stakes activity to help them develop the skills to do this kind of collaborative activity before you toss them into something that is heavily weighted and that they really probably have never truly, done online before. In terms of making online activities more active, I like this resource because it just lists a bunch of ideas. So annotation, citation, collaboration, conversion tools, curation, visualization, all of these different things. You can just take a look and see, do any of these things resonate in the course that I'm reviewing? Is there anything that could help this instructor achieve this objective in a way that's more active? Take a look. There's whatever Ali's posting links in the chat for you that are aligning with all of the stuff I'm showing you, but I want to make sure there's more stuff that is in that document than I'm actually showing you. So there's a lot of information that you can mine as you are doing your course reviews for ideas and suggestions and tips, and just also clarification of how a particular standard might be improved. So let's look at standard 45. Which has to do with, and now my thing is not being cooperative. Come on. I think I just blew that one. This one. And this one. So the standard is 45, and this is about authentic methods of assessment in online environments. And I'm going to point you to a couple of resources. Of course, this page here has a ton of links, and it's a major piece of a course review looking at how the instructor has designed the assessments, and are there ways to improve the designs of those assessments. And again, it all comes back to the well-articulated learning outcomes and objectives as a starting place, and making sure that everything aligns and maps. And so there's lots of different types of assessments, and there's lots of different tools that can be used to support different types of assessments. I always want to think in a learner-centered way. What am I doing in terms of an assessment to help the learner make their thinking, learning, and application of what they've learned visible to me and open to feedback to me as well as to others in the class. And that's not as easy as it is to say, right? Because sometimes we will rely on ways of assessing things that we're used to from our face-to-face environments, which may not be as effective in an online environment. And rethinking how you do that might take some effort in terms of the design of the activities. And so these are some ideas from our friends at UC Berkeley of alternative types of assessments. And so just when you're thinking this through, looking at a course, seeing how they're using multiple choice tests, for example, if they're worth 20% of the grade and they can't take them again and they're timed, you might want to make some suggestions for how to improve that. That is more effective and more authentic in the online environment. These are some other suggestions that that one can do. And so again, just ideas to help you think about a particular case you're looking at the objectives and how the assessment might be improved. Rubrics are a great thing to look at and to recommend for any types of activities that are represented in a course. And I would suggest going here and looking at the examples. There's all different kinds of examples for all different kinds of types of activities, all different kinds of tools and generators and information. And so I invite you to mine these resources for ideas. Academic honesty is always probably a question that you'll be talking about with your faculty as you do your course review and as you engage with them on the topic of assessment. So there are things that you can do in the design of assessments to help address the issue of supporting academic honesty. I never talk about it as preventing cheating. I always talk about it as helping learners to, with academic honesty. And so, it's a challenge and we're always, kind of running to try and catch up with technologies and with students' creative ways of addressing different problems that they may have. And so, in an online environment, it's no different than in a face-to-face classroom. Well, I mean, yes, it's different. There's different options and different opportunities and different limitations. And so to be aware of those things and try and design things that support the student to be, more thoughtful about the responses that they're giving and the contributions that they're making, and to make expectations clear and to break things down and make things iterative are some of the strategies that you can look for in a course you're reviewing to help an instructor either do more of or to do if they are not. 50, we're at the last one here. Getting feedback from the learners. So you want to make sure as a culminating activity in your class to get to have some culminating activities, have some farewell activities. You were in a learning community. You want to close that learning community, close the loop on it and mark the moment. But you also, I think one of the things you can do is to get feedback from the learners on their experiences in your course and the different types of things that they did, you asked them to do, that they experienced, so that you can use that information when you review and refresh your course the next time you are going to do that. And asking very specific questions, not just did you like the course or what did you like about the course, but really trying to get in to some nitty-gritty feedback to help you really to understand what their experience was and what you might be able to improve based on those experiences. I also like to do some sort of community farewell type activities. This is a video that I do at the end of my course where I use a tool called Animoto. It's free and it's really easy to use, and it creates a very nice video. And I use it to demonstrate what I learned about each of my students and something that shows what they learned in my course that I saw. And you can take a look at this video later if you're interested. Another thing that I do is I create a Padlet, and I let all of my current students at the end of the course write suggestions and recommendations for success for my future students. And then at the beginning of my course, the next semester, this feedback or suggestions from my former students is presented to my new students. And so they can see some things that former students said that help them or that they're suggesting that will help them. And it's a way to build class community across semesters also. All right, so that is all of the content that I had related to talking about the standards. I wanted to talk a little bit about providing feedback. And I have two documents that I wanted to point you to regarding, as a reviewer, how you provide feedback. And I always tell instructional designers or anyone, who's being a peer reviewer or whatever, start with I call it warm and cool feedback. So you start with the warm. What's working? What do you see that the instructor did well in the course? And kind of make a list of some of those things that you liked about the course and the ways that they approach certain things that help the instructor see that they did some things well. I'm not sure why this is, there it comes. So, I got rid of one of them. So this is the warm and the cool feedback. And so you can read this, this handout. Yeah, you want to be kind and specific and helpful. That's from a K-12, but I thought it was really cool. And then you also want to do some specific things in terms of your review. Start with the objectives. What's the content? What are the activities and assignments? How is the plan for feedback? Are the expectations clear? So take a look at how the instructor builds trust. How's the course structured? What are the instructions? Are they logical and consistent and clear? Do they use rubrics? And so forth. And then I have a bunch of examples of some course reviews. And these are just examples, and you'll see that they are all from me because they all have tons of word love in them. And that's me and my personality. I'm not telling you that you need to write your reviews this way. It's up to you how you articulate. I just wanted you to have some examples, and I had those handy. Where was the other one? I think I have examples in the other one too. Oh yeah, here too. So take a look at those. No, that's not the one. I must have gotten rid. Oh no, I remember. I put it at the end here. So take a look at these two documents, and you can look at them at your leisure. I also wanted to see if I think I'm at the end. Are there any questions? We're at the end of time, and I want to make sure that if there are any questions that you pop them in the chat. Aline, did any come in as we were talking?
Not that I saw.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to just keep talking just a little bit. If you have a question, unmute or pop your question in the chat. I want to invite you to the OSCQR user group, number one, and Aline will pop the link in the chat for that. We also have an online networking community. Both of these are in Facebook, and I invite you to join the online teaching community as well so that we can continue this conversation. And if it's around OSCQR and course reviews, the OSCQR user group is the place for that. If it's more general to online education, you can put it in the online teaching community, and we can continue to chat and interact and share information. If you have anything you want to share that you do or question that you have, go ahead and join either of those or both of those communities, and And you know, there's a bunch of us in there, and we're happy to continue these conversations. As a result of this workshop, you'll be earning this badge, and this means that you took this workshop and stuck it through to the end here. And then if you're interested in certification, there's another step. You actually have to take what you learned in this workshop and apply it to the review of one course. And then you have to submit some evidence, and that evidence will be a reflection on what you learned from the whole process of review and refreshing one online course. So the entire process. And then also you submit your rubric that you filled out as part of the process. And that's if you want the certification. You know, you don't need to do the certification. But if you're from SUNY and you're an experienced online instructional designer, I am really trying to get as many SUNY IDs certified as possible, because you've been doing course reviews for years. You have the information, no doubt, already somewhere. And so let me know, and I'll work with you to get your evidence together so that I can just issue you the certification. And for anyone who's not from SUNY, I equally want to help you get certified if that's something that will help you in your job currently or in some future job. I would love to help you get certified. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. I can give you examples of what the the evidence needs to look like, and work with you to make sure you understand what you need to do, and so forth. We have more workshops in the OSCQR series this fall. And so this is where you would go to find more information about the next webinar. The next one is going to be RSI on November 18th. And so if you would like to register for that, I also do one on designing an OSCQR implementation plan, and that will be December 12th. We also have a number of webinars that we do in addition to the OSCQR series. And here is the list of the webinars for this fall. I think the next one is the OSCQR Award Winner Showcase. So we have, for the first time, issued some awards last year for people using OSCQR. And if you want to learn more about that program and see the folks who won last year, see their projects or programs, come to that webinar. It's really good. They were really good, very innovative programs and activities, and we'd love to recognize you for yours. So come to that webinar and learn more, and so forth. And then finally, that was the warm and cool. Finally, we have a YouTube channel that has all of the webinars from the OSCQR series. If you missed some of this one, if you're tuning in to the video of this and you missed some of the other ones, you can come back here and take a look at the ones that we've done recently. And then we also have the list of the ones that we've done this fall that are not specifically OSCQR related. Here is the list of those. If you missed AI prompting for educators, that was awesome. And we also had one on the courses for observation program that we have, where faculty gave us tours of their exemplar courses. And that was a really great one that we did a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week ago. And that's it. This is our website. This is Aline, did you put this in the chat? The link to this in the chat? A recent blog post that I wrote about OSCQR not being a scorecard. I'm going to add this to the links page too, because I think
Erin added it in.
Oh, great. Thank you, Lynn. Erin. All right. So what else I think that's it. I think that's it. Did anyone put anything in the chat?
Just some thanks, and some people had to run, but as a reminder, the recordings will be posted to our YouTube channel.